Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to wait just about a minute to make sure that everyone that is hoping to join us has the opportunity to log in. But thank you all so much for joining us. You've just logged in. This is the Transferring to Oxy panel. Great. See, the numbers are still going up, so we're going to wait just a little bit longer to make sure that everybody joins us. Great. Well, welcome. My name is Marisa Martinez, and I am the Director of Transfer Admission at Oxy. So excited that you are taking time out of your day to spend some time to learn more about Oxy and the transfer experience. Like I mentioned a second ago, this is the Transferring to Oxy panel. I've got some wonderful panelists with me today, and I'm going to ask them to each introduce themselves in just a second. But if anybody does have questions, we do have an admission officer behind the scenes that will be answering any questions that we aren't able to get to today. So we'll have the panelists introduce themselves, and then I will ask some questions, and then we will open it up to all of you to be able to ask us any questions you might have for our panelists. So Ruby, how about you get us started? Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ruby. I'm a current senior at Oxy. So I'm like, the whole college thing is ending for me. I transferred to Oxy as a sophomore in the fall of 2018. I'm from Los Angeles, and I'm majoring in mathematics and minoring in urban and environmental policy.
Awesome. Thank you. Katerina?
Hi, I'm Katerina. I am a junior. I transferred in the fall of 2019 as a sophomore. I am an urban and environmental policy major, and I am an interdisciplinary writing minor.
Thank you. Jordan?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan. I transferred in the fall of 2010, so I am a graduate of Occidental. I also work in the admissions office, and I was a philosophy major.
Great. Thank you. So first question is, what led you to, apply to Oxy as a transfer student? Tell us a little bit about your journey, sort of what that was like. Katerina, do you mind getting us started?
Sure. So I went to a very, very small high school, and I think that was an environment that I really thrived in, but I wanted something else for myself. And so I attended the University of Arizona as a freshman because I really wanted that big college experience because my sister went to a big school. But the entire time I was applying to colleges, my parents were like, what about Occidental? Because my dad went to Occidental. He thought it would be a really great fit for me. And then I think throughout that year, I wanted to know people in my classes. I wanted a smaller environment. I wanted a relationship with my professors. And I can kind of go on and on about that, but I think that's what led me to Oxy. And plus it's a little closer to home for me, which I really liked. And, I know my fellow students and my professors, and yeah.
Okay. Ruby?
Yeah, I originally went to a small liberal arts college in Ohio, and then I went to a community college, and then I came to Oxy. So I had kind of a long, winding journey to Oxy, but I'm also from Los Angeles. So I kind of knew about Oxy when I was applying straight from high school, but I was like, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to go to Ohio. I realized that was not for me. I really value having that like small liberal arts experience in an urban environment and being able to access the resources of a city, especially like my home city, while learning. And especially as someone who's interested in urban policy, I found that at Oxy, one, it wasn't competitive academically. It's very collaborative, which I really value. And they have a really good relationship with the community and really value community engagement, which is also kind of one of the pillars of not only like my personal life, but also something I really value academically. So I feel like Oxy was kind of the perfect mix of everything I ever wanted out of a college, and transferring was like the best decision ever.
Jordan, do you mind?
Yeah, so when I was in high school, I wasn't quite sure, what kind of college I wanted to attend. I really had athletics kind of drive my college search process. So I was pretty interested in playing a Division I sport. So that led me to Fordham University. I also really wanted to go to school in a major city. So I ended up leaving San Diego and going to New York. And then while I was there, I realized that really a small liberal arts college, a more open curriculum, a strong sense of community were the things that most kind of aligned with my values and the experience that I was looking for. And frankly, I was also a little homesick. So I immediately started looking at small liberal arts colleges in Southern California. And then I visited Oxy, and it was immediately the perfect blend of the kind of community that I was looking for, but like Ruby was saying, located in a city. And I can also say that transferring to Oxy has like shaped the trajectory of my life. I obviously wouldn't work here if I hadn't gone, and I'm just so grateful that it all worked out.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think you all sort of represent what we see in the transfer pool and students who decide to apply, right? Where we see students who apply directly from community colleges, others that are applying directly from four-year institutions. We have non-traditional students. So our transfer students are diverse and come from, different institutions and are applying to Oxy. Their journeys are all very different. So tell us a little bit then about what the transition was like for you. What was that like coming in as a sophomore? And if you transferred in the fall or in the spring, I think if you can talk a little bit about what that was like, that'd also be really helpful. Ruby, do you want to start?
Yeah, so I was actually super nervous about transferring to a small school because first I thought I was going to be the only sophomore, everyone was going to be juniors, and then I thought I was going to be entering into a class where everyone had already made friends and there was no way I was going to be able to like integrate into the college very well. But what I found at Oxy is not only is there a really intentional transfer like cohort almost every single fall. I transferred in the fall. So Oxy is one of the only schools of its size that actually admits transfers every fall and like a sizable amount. So we have kind of like a foundation of a transfer community already. And that was shown not only in just like being able to engage on campus and not feel like I was the one transfer, but also in the programming right when I got there, because during orientation, there is an intentional kind of section of that is just for transfer students, where I got to mingle and meet all the different transfer students who transferred in the fall 2018, sophomores and juniors. And they usually like put us in housing together. So I felt like I wasn't alone. Like I wasn't just like thrown into the college, like willy-nilly, had no idea what was going on. Like I feel like the school made sure they knew like I was coming, you know what I'm saying? And they were like, let's make sure Ruby, like it feels comfortable and transitions well. And I feel like that beginning kind of like, here's the foundation of what it's like to be a transfer at Oxy, helped me be comfortable in that transition and then start my transition into being just a regular sophomore at Oxy, and then into being just a regular junior, and now just being a regular senior who just happened to transfer as a sophomore.
Yeah, if I can follow up with on that, Ruby, we have a lot of people in the session today that are currently attending community colleges. Can you talk a little bit about sort of what that was like for you, that experience transferring from? I know you started at a four-year institution, you transferred to a community college, and then to Oxy. Can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yeah, so socially, going to a small liberal arts college is a lot different than going to a community college. I think especially you can make the most out of your experience at community college and really engage, but going to a school like Oxy, you're living, eating, and studying with the same 2,000 people who are living on campus. So it is really like everything on campus and all the people around you are kind of at your fingertips. And it's being a part of a community means something completely different at a school like Oxy than it does at a community college. So socially, it's a lot easier to get engaged with Oxy community and find a group of people that you really connect and relate to. Academically, Oxy really transitions you from kind of your first year to your sophomore year to your junior year to your senior year. So coming in as a sophomore or as a junior, I think coming in as a junior is a little bit more difficult academically if you haven't taken like really, really challenging courses. But professors are understanding, your advisors are understanding, and there's a lot of leeway, honestly, in Oxy's kind of curriculum for you to be able to also create that transition for yourself as a junior. But as a sophomore, academically, I found it really easy because still as a sophomore, you're taking intro classes, you're still kind of figuring out what your major is. There's no rush to really like take a 300 level math class. So it really is kind of like the stepping stones to a very difficult junior and senior year, but you'll be prepared.
Yes, yes. Katerina?
So coming into Oxy, I was actually kind of terrified, just because I was worried like I didn't make the right choice, but I think it was very clear that I did, just because Oxy orientation is really special, and my year had the biggest group of transfers, I think, in over 10 years. So I think that was a really good experience, having so many people in the same position as I was. And I think that really builds like a little community of transfers, and you get very close with these people. But then also you have that opportunity to branch out and also, you know, share that experience with other transfers. And I think it was very different because in Arizona, my orientation was a day long, and there was, you know, thousands of people there. I didn't meet anyone. I didn't get to build any connections until school actually started. And so I think it's really easy to transition into the Oxy community. And also the student body is unlike anything I've ever seen before. Everyone is just extremely welcoming. And I'm not just saying that, like it's like a phenomenon. And I think one challenge I did have joining the Oxy community was that I was seeing the same people every day, which was something that I was not used to. But also I think that's how I made friends, is because I'm seeing these same people every day. You know, I might as well get acquainted with them and build relationships with them. So I think I had a pretty smooth transition into Oxy.
Jordan?
Yeah, I agree a ton with what Ruby and Katerina are talking about. I mean, I was terrified. I was really nervous. I was like, did I make the wrong choice? Is this the right place for me? I visited in between semesters when there was no students on campus. So there were a lot of unknowns going into it. And orientation really quelled a lot of my anxiety immediately. I met a cohort of transfers that I felt like were in a similar kind of frame of mind as I was, and wanted to meet people, and the sense of community that I found in my immediate transfer cohort. I mean, I can say it's lasted now 10 years. We're still very much good friends. And the thing about Oxy that I think is great is our community and student body are so engaged that even if your immediate social connections are all transfers, everyone's going to be involved and engaged in other things. And then your social circle kind of spider webs out from that. So I had friends in majors that were different from mine or involved in different campus organizations. So certainly initially I felt like, you know, a little bit more kind of isolated within the transfer community, but then over time, because of that level of engagement, I was able to meet people across campus and really feel like a part of the community too.
Great. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think you all talked about sort of how important orientation is. And I do think whether you're coming in the spring or in the fall, we take the time to make sure that students feel connected. We orient them to the college. And one of the very first things that every transfer does when they arrive at Oxy is they meet with an academic advisor, and then oftentimes our registrar, who will sit down with them and sort of sort out, okay, these are the classes that you've taken. Let's figure out what requirements you still need to complete. And if you have any questions about a major, you've got faculty, you've got the registrar, and you've got other students there to sort of guide you through that transition. So orientation, whether you come in the spring or in the fall, that will be the very first thing that you do at Oxy before the very first day of classes. So, well, you all sort of talked a little bit about this, but can you talk about what you found to be the most support during your time here at Oxy, whether it was a faculty, clubs, maybe various departments? Where have you found support during your time at Oxy? Katerina?
I think of a couple things. Definitely my professors, because your professors pay attention. I've had professors reach out to me and be like, hey, like, are you okay? Like, how is this online semester doing? Even if I'm not in their class this semester. they definitely pay attention and they keep up with you. And you can really build great relationships with your professors that last. And another thing is Emmons. I had never seen a therapist like before I came to Oxy, and then it was just like, you know, thrown at me a little bit. But I think that's something that's really helped me with my transition, because, you know, I get to talk to someone about my fears that, you know, things people might not understand. And also like other transfers in the transfer student union really helped me, because I got to meet other transfers and we were all in that together. And so I think there's a lot of avenues for you to find support at Oxy.
Yeah, thank you. And Emmons is our wellness center on campus. And so if you're ever feeling sick, or if you need to talk with someone, right? Maybe you're having a really stressful semester, or you just need someone to talk to, those services are available to students. So, thank you. Ruby?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of things that supported me, like at Oxy and in my transition. I think kind of socially, the people I met during orientation, like my O team, that like little group we have, really supported me for the first few weeks. I think also I really quickly got involved on campus purposefully. So I went through recruitment and I joined a Greek organization, and that was like a really quick and easy way to like meet a ton of really cool women. And then also just kind of like really going all in and like joining a bunch of clubs. I had a KOXY radio show for like a few semesters. That was really fun. And just like putting myself out there, even in classes, like being like, hey, you want to study for the midterm in the library later? Or asking people to like have lunch at the MP, or like sitting down with them if I saw if I saw someone I knew. But yeah, I think like the big thing that like really supported my social transition to Oxy was definitely going through recruitment my first semester. But I know that's not for everyone, so I'm not like saying that's the.
Jordan, it's been a few years since you've graduated, but you know, now that you can look back on your time here, you know, what do you think was the biggest support?
Yeah, I would echo a lot of what's been said. For me, Oxy was pretty rigorous, especially at the outset. So certainly like the level of accessibility of faculty helped kind of scaffold that transition for me. And in my experience, all my faculty in that first semester were really accessible, helping, wanted me to also learn more about the Oxy community. So I really appreciated their level of commitment. I also was a member of an athletics team, and I really found community through my sport. So that was really a nice way to immediately feel like I was a part of the campus community. And then also with my orientation group, once orientation was done, we would typically just like go in the library for like 5 hours every night. And we would, you know, support each other with studying, and also just get to know each other a lot better. So that's really how we became such close friends too.
Thank you. You know, some of the things that makes Oxy, you know, so special is the intimate community, but also the fact that we are in the city of Los Angeles and all of the resources and opportunities that come with being such a metropolitan city. So can you talk about how you engaged as a student, both with the Oxy community and then with the greater Los Angeles, with the city of LA? Ruby?
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. I think every single semester I've been at Oxy, when I was an education minor, and then also when I switched to urban and environmental policy, I had at least one, if not more, class that directly involved either the neighborhood kind of surrounding Oxy, which is Eagle Rock and Highland Park, or the city of Los Angeles. And that meant like a field trip where we went to a museum and like that related to the course material, a kind of like reflective walk through the neighborhood to examine gentrification, or even like actually working with a community organization that is like one of like I worked with Sage, which is like a really huge community organization in Los Angeles. It does a lot of really great work in South Los Angeles. And I got to like basically like kind of intern with them for one of my courses, which was really, really cool, and support them in the work they were doing. And then even also professors being like actual city leaders. One of my professors for a urban education policy class that was centered equity and access was the former board president of Los Angeles School District, which I went to an LUSD high school, and he was the board president when I was in LUSD, like through my K through 12 or whatever. So that was really, really cool. And being able to like study like exactly the school district I went into and what access and equity looks like in its policy has been really cool. So that's just a few of my little stories about LA.
Jordan?
Yeah, on campus, I really kind of found community again through my sport. And not only just on my team, but as a department, I really think we support each other. So that's something that I really appreciated as a student athlete. I also, I'm not just saying this because I work in admissions, I found a home in admissions as a student worker. That's really where I felt like I belonged. So that was really nice to have that space on campus and also earn some money. And then in terms of engaging with LA, I was part of a group that still exists called Peer Health Exchange. So I helped facilitate some health workshops in LA USD classrooms. I certainly had a lot of classes where Los Angeles was really kind of the intersection of theory and practice. Like I remember taking urban and environmental policy classes. And I think if I could go back, I'd be a UEP major if I could do it again. But we really, we were talking about affordable housing, and Los Angeles is going to be the prison that you're viewing affordable housing issues. So again, I really appreciated the way that we take into account where we're located when we talk about these really important social issues.
Thank you. Katerina?
Like Ruby touched on and Jordan, I got involved really, really quickly too. Like I had 2 shows on KOXI. I was involved in the Transfer Student Union and the Planned Parenthood Club. And so I think I got well acquainted. I also worked in the library. So that's a really fun job if you have the opportunity. So I think I got really well acquainted with the Oxy really quickly, but also I had the opportunity to have an internship for one of my classes. And so I'm working for a hospitality workers union right now. And so that's gotten me really involved with Los Angeles and the communities and workers in Los Angeles. And also I would go on those walks with Ruby to look at the gentrification of the neighborhood. And so I think there are opportunities everywhere, but then also each professor at Oxy is involved somehow in Los Angeles or organizations in Los Angeles. So I just asking your professor, it can give you an avenue to a lot of things.
Thank you. Yeah. One of the things that I'm sure is on a lot of students' mind is how will Oxy prepare me for the workforce, for graduate school? Jordan, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what that experience was like for you. I don't think you mentioned this at the beginning, but you have a master's degree. So talking a little bit about what that experience is like. And then Ruby and Katerina, if you could talk a little bit about how you feel, if you've had any interaction with the Career Center or just maybe with your advisors about thinking through what you might want to do once you graduate from Oxy and sort of that path forward. So Jordan, do you mind getting us started?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely, my liberal arts education is really what prepared me super well for all the things that I pursued after graduating. As I like to think it made me agile, and it's not that I just changed my mind a lot about what I do for work, but I was able to pursue a bunch of different things. So I worked as a coach for a little bit. I worked at a PR agency. I worked in admissions at 2 other schools. And then I got my master's in educational policy. So I'm only 7 years out. So I like to think that my liberal arts education really did kind of prepare me to be agile and nimble in pursuing these different things. But certainly regarding graduate school, Oxy was really good preparation. I definitely felt like it was about as smooth a transition as I could have had going into graduate school. Super well prepared. Oxy was frankly every bit as rigorous as my graduate school program. And something that I really appreciated was my academic advisor who wrote my letter of recommendation for graduate school. I mean, we had been able to stay in touch and she really knew me in a substantive way. And I think that also underscores the relationship-based kind of culture that we have here on campus and just the level of relationship you can have with faculty at Oxy. So I really appreciated that aspect as well. And just being removed from my student experience, I never thought growing up that I'd have as many friends pursuing PhD programs as I can say I know now. So that's definitely something that's really exciting to see my friends and peers go on to be scholars in different fields. So it's been awesome to have kind of a front row seat to that experience too.
Thanks. Ruby?
Yeah, and as someone who is planning for post-grad in a COVID world, I was like, there's no way, like I'm gonna figure all this out. But I've actually gotten like the most support, more support than I ever thought was possible in kind of planning for post-grad when there's an economic downturn and a global pandemic. And like, so I'm applying to grad programs, I'm looking for jobs, I'm applying to fellowships, and my professors are more than willing, if not excited, to meet with me one-on-one and connect me with people who they like know personally at the grad programs I'm applying to. One of my professors, I was just like, I just want to get your thoughts. Maybe you could connect me with some Oxy students who went to these grad programs. And she actually connected me with like my dream job. And literally over the phone, they were like, yeah, we'll make a spot for you like next spring. I was literally shook. But I think like in a way that I never thought was possible, it has really been, Oxy has been so supportive. The Career Center in having internships when I was like an undergrad and not preparing for postgrad, and even now in postgrad, them hosting events for seniors specifically on how to look for a job in a global pandemic, how to apply to grad school, how to fill out your personal statements, meeting with them one-on-one, meeting with my professors, having them write me recommendations. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that was like a well-rounded answer, but overall, it has been 10 out of 10.
Thank you. Katerina?
So one thing I've learned from being at Occidental is that you have time to figure this stuff out. And I think that's something that a lot of students are worried about, not having enough time, especially if you transfer. And I think that's something my academic advisor and the Career Center have definitely helped me learn, because, you know, I'm a junior and I still think that I have a lot of time to figure this out. Because, you know, going into college and even transferring, I had absolutely no idea what I wanted to do in life. And I think I'm still learning that. But the Career Center is always there for you. They've definitely helped me. I've changed my minor a couple of times. I was a public health minor for a little bit because I thought, you know, this is the route. Like, it's such a good pairing for UEP. And then my academic advisor was like, you know, maybe you should take a class that you for fun. So I took a journalism class and I fell in love. So I think you have a lot of time, take things that you enjoy, and you might find something very different. And also, I've used the Career Center for interviews for the Green Bean and the library job. And so they're always there for you, no matter what the interview, how big or small it is. And so, yeah.
Yeah, and the Green Bean, by the way, is a student-run coffee shop on campus, and it's, if you want to have any experience in running a small business, doesn't get any better than sort of working at the Green Bean. It's also, they make the best coffee on campus or anywhere. So great. Well, Katerina, you touched a little bit on my next question, which is, what advice would you give to prospective transfer students that are considering applying to Oxy?
Don't become overwhelmed by all the things you see online. That was the thing that I did when I was transferring. I really was digging on the internet for like, what is transferring like, you know, like, what do I have to do? Like, what is it going to be like? And I was scared by the answers, and it's not like what the internet tells you. It's not like that at all. I think just don't overwhelm yourself. And also, you have a lot of time and things are going to work out. Like, I had no problem with my classes, getting the classes I needed. I'm going to graduate on time. I actually have, you know, room in my schedule for, you know, more classes to try in other departments. And so just reassuring yourself that you have time and you're going to be okay during this. So
Ruby?
Yeah, I think I agree. I don't know. I think maybe my advice is like really like put yourself out there, jump in feet first, and really like you will no, even if you don't do this, you'll get a lot out of Oxy, but if you really give it your all, you'll get a lot out of it earlier, and you might even get more than you would just going with the flow. But I think like transferring at Oxy is not difficult, but it's also not easy. Like you're transferring to a new school in the middle of your academic career, and though you will be successful no matter what you do, you'll get so much more out of it if you like really give it your all that first semester and like really engage with the community, really engage with your professors, and really engage with also like extracurriculars, because then you just meet a lot of people and you have a lot of.
Thank you. And Jordan, looking back, what advice do you have for students that are both applying and also going through the whole process?
Yeah, I would say I remember when I was applying, I felt like I had to have like very specific reasons for why I needed to apply to that school or why I should be interested in that school. And in retrospect, I ended up, I got very fortunate that I ended up here. But I really think, being comfortable with having a softer focus and thinking about more, value-based things, like what sort of community you're looking for, what sort of experience academically are you hoping to have, as opposed to getting in the minutia of like individual programs or things like that. Obviously, that's going to play a role based on what you're interested in. But I think having sort of a softer focus can really lead you to different paths and potentially new experiences. And then I think my advice for students that have just transferred to Oxy is exactly what Ruby was just talking about, like just being open and trying new things and trying to be involved as early as possible. I think that's really great. Oxy, it does have a ton to offer, but it's not necessarily the place that's just going to give it to you. You have to kind of put yourself out there as well.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So we are going to transition to see if any of our participants have questions for you all. I've been asking lots of questions. So yeah, so one of the questions is, can you talk about whether you've lived on campus or off campus and what that experience was like? Now, I know right now, Oxy is entirely remote, but we do have some students on campus that are living on campus, but I know, Ruby, you're living just down the street from us. So did you all live on campus, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, I lived on campus. Well, I think traditionally, Oxy has given transfer students housing. There was one semester for spring students where they didn't offer it, but for the most part, Oxy gives you housing and tries to put you in a room with another transfer student. So you may not be in a transfer like dorm, but almost somehow you happen to be like on the same floor as like multiple transfer people who live in the same room. That's like common. And it's not perfect, but that's usually how it goes. So my year, I got really lucky. I got put in themed housing that was really empty. So they filled it with all the women identifying transfer students. So during orientation, it was like just us living in this like little off-campus house, and we were like living it up. We had a huge TV. We were like all really close to each other because it's like an old converted frat house. So we were like all right next to each other. And I really enjoyed living on campus, and I lived on campus as a junior with the same people I lived with in that house, and now we're roommates again, living off campus as seniors, and we're all transfers to Oxy, all sophomore transfers. So I really think that lent a lot to my experience and a lot to my transition, knowing that I was like surrounded by community, that Oxy thought of me when I was coming and knew that I would probably want to be with someone who was going through the same thing as me. And I continued the tradition. You don't have to, you can live with people who aren't transfers, but it has been nice now still being a senior and still living with them. And we're having a great time. We have some kittens now, so it's very exciting.
Thank you. Katerina?
So I did live on campus, and I was planning to live on campus this year too. And I've lived with both transfers and traditional students. And I think that I really enjoyed living with non-traditional or with traditional students because it really pushed me into the community, and I got to meet students that weren't transfers, but then also living with transfers is nice because you're going through the same things and you're experiencing, you know, the same feelings and things. And so I think both of them are a great experience, and living on campus is great. I actually lived in the dorm that my dad lived in on campus, which was a little weird, but it was definitely a fun experience knowing that. But yeah, living on campus is a really great experience, and the food is wonderful on campus. I don't know why, I don't know how, but it's wonderful.
Lots of wonderful options. Jordan?
I just have to say the food is incredible. So I completely agree. As a staff member, I think I have to pay more money than you are as a student when I go, and I still go because I just love it, especially the French toast sticks. So that's just a shameless plug for the food. I lived on campus when I transferred, and I had, it was a kind of a surprising experience for me. I lived on a floor of Norris, which these floors typically have 8 doubles. So there's 16 humans that live there. So I was put in a group with 15 people that were already best friends with one another. So it probably had the potential to go south, but it ended up being okay. They were super welcoming. And then the rest of my time at Oxy, I actually did live with transfer students. So my junior year, I lived on campus with 2 transfer students. And then my senior year, I lived off campus, maybe no more than, 500 feet off campus with a couple of transfer students as well. So in my experience, that was kind of common for if you did live off campus to live in the surrounding neighborhood.
Okay, thanks. By the way, if anybody has questions, feel free to use the Q&A feature to ask a question. Also, whether it's about sort of the transfer experience or also if you have any admission questions, I'm also happy to chime in and answer any questions. This was for Ruby, but I'm sure all of you can answer this. What was it? Transferring to Oxy, how easy was it for you to transfer the credits that you had accumulated at your previous institutions? And did you have any difficulty, or how did you go about that process? And I'm also happy to chime in, by the way, when anybody is accepted, one of the things that you will receive with your acceptance letter is a credit sheet, which outlines these are the classes, this is how many credits we've already, in reviewing your transcript, this is how many credits you will be transferring in, and this is how many requirements you've already fulfilled. And you can always petition. If there hasn't been a class that you feel you do deserve credit for, you can always petition to the registrar or a department. But would love to hear from you all sort of how you felt that transition was like, whether or not you had difficulty.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note about Oxy specifically is everything that happens on Oxy's campus is like a real person doing it, and a real person who will probably get to know you through your time at Oxy. It's not like an office with an office email. It's like you can usually email the person like directly, like the person who looked at your transcript and like approved your courses. So kind of how it works at Oxy is when you apply, as Marisa was saying, is they approve your courses kind of like with the information they know. So they approve it for credit, they approve it for a department, or they approve it as like a direct transfer to a class at Oxy. And all of that, if it's not approved for what you need it to be, can be easily petitioned to approve to like the registrar and through the department. I know that sounds like very scary, but what you'll find at Oxy is like when it's like you email one person, the head of the department, who's a real person, who's the head of like eight to 10 people in that department for the professor. And then you email the registrar and it's like the one person who works there. And it's really like, it's a 1-page form. You fill out maybe like one line of it, get like one signature, and then turn it in. And almost always it gets approved for what you need it to be approved for. And another great kind of resource is that there are tons of transfer students who have filled out that form as well, and who will be filling it out with you and going through the same exact process. So it's not like no one ever fills out this obscure form and like no one ever emails them about it. Like the heads of departments have never seen it before. It's like very common, and it's like a form that we all fill out to be able to like get a class approved for a major, just because they didn't have enough information like just with your paper transcript. So yeah, it's really easy at Oxy simply because it's just like we're just that community where it's that person, and it's not like a whole office, a whole institution trying to get this one class approved.
Katerina, what was that experience like for you?
I actually had no problem. I was also very worried about this because, I was doing a lot of research and being like, oh my God, my credits aren't going to transfer over. Actually, all of my credits transferred over, transferred to something like core requirements, major requirements, things like that. And so I'm actually ahead right now of where I should be. So it worked out very well for me. I mean, I did petition, 2 or 3 classes and they did apply to something. So um, I don't think it should be something that should be worried about. It is a little harder for juniors, but um, you're going to graduate on time. Again, professors are very flexible about that. I've never had trouble getting into a class. You just say that you're a transfer and they'll probably let you in. So yeah, I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, and I assume that the University of Arizona had very different ways in which they awarded credits. Or even, were you all on the quarter system or this trimester system there?
We were semesters, but the way that like core and your major classes were just very different. It was it was like a weird system, but it actually translated very well. So
Yeah, so no matter where you're coming from, whether you're coming from a community college or a large university that's on the quarter system, the college will sit down with you and really make sure that we give you as many credits as we possibly can to make sure that you graduate on time and that you are given credit for all the work that you've done before coming Oxy. So, yeah. And Jordan, you graduated on time, so yeah, it wasn't difficult.
Yeah, I had to take a 1 credit spin class my last semester. So there are activity classes and I needed that single credit and it worked. So I got to the 128 needed. So I didn't have any issues. My friends didn't have any issues. I was also like particularly nervous about an astronomy class I took because I just didn't think I would survive another lab science, but that counted. So we were in good shape there. So it all ended up okay.
Great, great. Well, one question is, can you talk a little bit about the campus culture on the weekends? And also how does the city of LA play into sort of what students do here during the week and also on the weekends? Anyone want to go?
As a tour guide, I feel like I always described it as like the weekdays, the surrounding neighborhood like Eagle Rock and Highland Park are really accessible to students, and that's like mostly what students access during the weekdays because like we're busy and we can't go that far. We have to be in the library by 7 p.m. But for the weekends is really the opportunity for students to explore the city in like a recreational way instead of like an academic way if you want, but I didn't do that academically on the weekends. And you can really go so much farther. I went to downtown for the Broad. I know a lot of people go to the beach on the weekends. I used to go to like West Hollywood and like go to Glossier like with my friends. We would like get brunch, do the whole like bougie LA thing. So yeah, the weekends are a really great time for Oxy students to really like get to the kind of really cool parts of the city and get out of our like kind of little small neighborhood.
Katerina, do you want to talk about your experience with the city and also just on the weekend with like what a typical weekend is like here at Oxy on campus?
Yeah, so one thing I found is that, no one's going to judge you if you don't go off campus or you stay on campus during the weekend, which is very different from my experience in Arizona. And so I found myself going off campus during the weekends and exploring different parts of LA. And like, I'm from Los Angeles and I had never done this before. I found myself using public transportation for the first time, and just exploring like, Chinatown, Koreatown, like things like that. I did often, but then also just like, if you want to stay in your dorm during the weekend, no one's going to judge you for it.
I agree. The weekends is really when kind of I was able to explore. And even though San Diego is not terribly far, I wasn't very familiar with Los Angeles. So especially initially, even trips to Pasadena or Glendale and just to get off campus. But definitely what Ruby said about the Broad. Shout out to the Broad. Seeing different museums and things. So yeah, I typically would go off campus during the weekend, but certainly it was a mix.
And I imagine that even for those of you that are from Los Angeles, you really get to explore probably parts of the city or have experiences that you certainly didn't have as a high school student, and given just how big the city is. And so, and I imagine that's fun to be able to do that with other students who haven't had those experiences or are also sort of exploring the city of Los Angeles for the first time. So, yeah. So one of the questions is, looking back, would you have done anything differently in your first semester at Oxy? Or maybe do you wish anything would have been different, or I don't know, was there any challenges to that first semester?
Yeah, that's a question I don't think I think about often, but I think my answer is when I came to Oxy, I was very like spreadsheet oriented. I was like, I need to do these classes this semester. I have no time to like willy-nilly take classes left and right. I'm a transfer student. But now I'm a senior and I'm like taking 12 credits, and I like could have taken really cool electives when I was, a sophomore, and like exploring kind of all the departments at Oxy. And I really had that leeway, but I think I was like limiting myself, being scared that I wouldn't like graduate on time. But there's like a very, very slim chance that that will happen to you at Oxy, like that you would have to fall through many cracks, like many cracks, to be able to not graduate on time. Like you would have to literally be ignored by like every single office and every professor, which is just not the Oxy way. So yeah, I really wish I had like explored the UEP department when I was younger as a sophomore, so I didn't have to like switch as a junior. I wish maybe I had explored computer science as a major and like maybe done something with that. I don't regret my current academic trajectory, but I do think I would have had a really, I think I would have gained a lot out of being able to explore young.
Yeah, and that's one of the nice things about Oxy, right? You're never limited by your major, that you really have access to every department and just about every class that is offered at Oxy. So, even if you come in as a junior, you really do still have some time to be able to explore different disciplines and even just take a class because it sounds interesting and fun. So, but yeah, Katerina, can you talk a little bit about sort of what you would, looking back, what you might have done differently?
I wish I spoke up more in my classes. I found that I was a little more quiet than other students and I didn't speak as much just because I just had lecture style classes in Arizona. And so discussion was something I was a little unfamiliar with, but I think my professors made it so it was a comfortable and, a safe environment where I could talk openly about things. And so I think throughout my first semester and definitely into my second semester, I began to speak up more and I wasn't afraid to do it. Yeah, and also like kind of taking like classes outside of my major and finding new things. Like I wouldn't have been interested in writing or a writing minor without taking a journalism class that I entered 2 weeks after the deadline. And so yeah, that's definitely speaking up more in class. Yeah.
Yeah, Katerina stole mine. I was at a larger institution as well, and I was really used to not being disengaged, but not having to speak in class. So I definitely was immediately tossed into an environment where it felt like a lot of my classmates were already pretty comfortable doing that. So there was a little bit of an adjustment period in that sense. And then the only other thing that I did learn by the time I graduated is trying to take classes where there really is an interaction with Los Angeles. And that's something where I seem to really be most engaged and appreciated the most. So that was something I learned, but I didn't know that the first semester.
Okay, thank you. We don't have a whole lot more questions, but one question is the campus open to visit? And so unfortunately, it is closed. So the Office of Admission is closed, and most of us are working remotely. But there is the option of, if you happen to find yourself in Eagle Rock and you'd like to walk around, that is an option. You do need to complete an online form, a health check form that you can find that. And I'm sure our admission officer will drop a link in the chat for you to be able to do that. So you can definitely walk around and see that Oxy is a beautiful campus. But all of the classes or all of the offices are closed. So you won't be able to actually walk into any building. But there is some material just outside the Office of Admission, and there's an online tour that you could follow if you wanted to walk around. So that still is an option if you find yourself in Eagle Rock. Yeah, well, so one question that I have for you all is, can you talk a bit about the experience that you've had with faculty and sort of advising? And is that any different than maybe what you had experienced at your previous institutions?
Yeah, I think my experience with faculty has been amazing. My academic advisor in my major is super awesome. And I was like, I don't know if I'm super interested in the math classes being offered this semester. I need to take two, but there's only one like applied math course that I find interesting. And he was like, let's do an independent study. And he doesn't get paid extra to do independent studies, but he's putting in the work for me because he wants to see me explore my academic interests. And he has always like been really supportive of me doing that. And we were going to do a summer one, but then I like couldn't afford it. And he was like, no, you're all good. We'll do one during the school year. So we're literally doing like a one-on-one independent study on exactly a topic that we got to like shape together, which is really awesome. And then in my minor, I wanted to do research that was kind of surrounding the intersection between math and like data analytics and urban policy. And I reached out to my professor and she was like, you know what, sounds great. I'm not the professor for that, but this professor is. And I got to work with him on a summer research project last summer that was funded by Oxy. And I also kind of got to shape exactly what I wanted to study. And I learned so much, and he's really helping me like with my kind of post-grad planning too, because he's a quantitative social scientist, and that's kind of exactly my academic journey that I want to be on as well. So I've had a really, really great experience, and I found like that really, really specific niche at Oxy, which I wasn't expecting. And it's not even that niche because he's one of many professors at Oxy who are quantitative social scientists and who I could have worked with one-on-one. So yeah.
Katerina, Jordan, I want to jump in.
I think I said earlier that like my professors, they'll send me emails every now and then, be like, hey, like, how are you doing? Like, how's this semester for you? And so I think I've built really great relationships with my professors. And also you can use your professors as a resource for the future. I've gotten many great contacts from my journalism professors, which I hope to connect with these people in the future. Hopefully there's a job in there somewhere. But yeah, definitely built great relationships with my professors, and they will speak to you as a peer. Like, they will not talk down to you, which is something I feel like I experienced at Arizona. They show you respect, and that's something that was definitely a little foreign to me from my professors. But it's very easy to keep in contact with them and reach out to them because they're always available.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Good.
I was gonna say that was my experience as well. And I remember being in Professor Traeger's class, and we were going through David Hume's treatise on human nature. And Professor Traeger's a past president of the David Hume Society. And I remember just him being so patient with me and wanting me to be excited about David Hume. And I really felt the energy. And now, 7 years later, however many years it was from when I took that class, I could tell you a lot more about David Hume than I ever thought I could. But certainly with the benefit of distance from graduating, it's been, awesome to stay in touch with faculty members, and they really do care about how you're doing. So my academic advisor and I still trade emails, and I'm really grateful for that relationship. And I also think that there's support beyond academic advising as well. I know in staff members, I really found some support too with my supervisor in admissions. So that was also a great opportunity as well.
Thank you. One question is, how do you feel your Oxy experience has changed you? Both currently as a student now, and then Jordan, looking back, how do you think the Oxy experience has shaped you and your decisions? It's a big question. It's a big question, but yeah. Ruby, do you wanna?
Yeah, I feel like we're going in this order, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, let's just keep the order going. It completely changed my entire academic trajectory coming to Oxy. My first semester took a class called The History of Urban Design with Professor Moses. Love Professor Moses. If you come to Oxy, take a class with her. And that class literally changed my life. It changed my entire academic trajectory. I got really involved in the urban policy department through that. I found my true passion for urban planning through that class. And she still to this day emails me. She went on sabbatical that next semester. So I didn't see her for a year. I ran into her pre-COVID this last spring, and she remembered my face and was like, Ruby, how are you? And then when I finished my research this summer, she emailed me, just emailed me out of the blue and was like, I saw your research. This is so great. I'm so glad you're still interested in the urban space. Would love to chat. And I think that just really speaks to just Oxy. I feel like she knew she changed my life. She remembered me. I talk about her on all of my tours and almost every single panel about how an amazing professor she was, and about how that class really, I wanted to be a high school math teacher, and now I want to be an urban planner. It's just, it's crazy.
Katerina?
My academic journey also changed a lot. Going into college, I wanted to be a lawyer. I don't want to do that anymore. Just because I took really different classes at Oxy, and I took them in very different departments. I've taken theater classes, I've taken art classes, and now I'm figuring out if I want to do community organizing or writing in some form. And so I forgot where I was going with that, but yeah, definitely just take advantage of your classes and take different classes in different departments. I can't emphasize that enough. I would highly recommend a theater class or two.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to that flexibility and freedom that you have with the curriculum at Oxy, right? That you really can explore all sorts of different classes and departments. So I'm glad that you've been able to do that. Jordan, looking back now, how do you think the Oxy has shaped your choices and sort of your outlook?
Yeah, I mean, it's even hard to give language to. It's had such a profound effect on my life, both as a student worker, as a part-time employee after I graduated, as a full-time employee now. It's shaped so much. So I definitely think that Oxy was a place that really taught me the value and importance of community. And that's not to say that we're a perfect community, but I think we are a community that, is striving to always be better. So that's a fundamental thing that's Oxy instilled in who I am. Certainly my experience as a senior fellow, I know Ruby is one right now, was really kind of what inspired my career to work in college admissions. So I obviously am really grateful for that. And then what everyone was saying about just exploring and taking different classes. I mean, I was a philosophy major, but I'm so grateful that I took a number of CTSJ classes, critical theory and social justice, UEP, definitely not math or science, but other social sciences and humanities. And I'm so grateful that even as a transfer, there was flexibility in allowing me to take these different kinds of courses too. So yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. We are out of time, but I want to thank you, Ruby, Katerina, and Jordan for taking time to chat with us today. I appreciate it. And thank you all for joining us today. Our office, while we are working remotely, we are always here to answer any questions that you might have. You can email us. I'm sure that there will be contact information included in the chat if you do have questions. We are interviewing right now for any student who is planning to apply for spring or fall entry. So, and you can find that information on our website. You can also find a lot of detailed information about the application. So check that out when you have time. But thank you all so much, and enjoy the rest of the evening. And we are available here should you have any questions. But thank you all so much. Thank you for joining us.